Welcome to the symbolic lodge of conversation, where consciousness and curiosity interweave into discussion. This is All Square Podcast. I'm your host, R.L. Franks, and today's guest has been a Mason for over 35 years. I've seen his journey, he's watched my journey into Masonry, and he's going to tell us his journey as he had to travel west to get to the east. This is the story of worshipful brother Eric Erickson. Eric, thanks for being on the show today.
Thank you, Worshipful. It's great to be here, and it's an honor that I was asked to do this because at the time that you started this podcast, I had no idea that you were doing this. And it was like, I guess you were like 4 weeks or 5 weeks into it. And it's like, I had to do a crash down course and watch all the episodes. So I've been really impressed with what you've done. You and Michael and Jana. It's a great show. I love it. I'm really enthused about it. And I'm trying to figure out how to get this sent back to my lodge back in New Jersey. So we'll figure that out after tonight.
Well, first and foremost, I really appreciate your support to this. I really appreciate you just being a brother for me. I talked about in a previous episode how when one time I was in distress and you actually saved me in a snowstorm. But for the people watching at home, both Masons, non-Masons, men, women, Eric, 35 years of Masonry. You've experienced it all. You've met men from all different generations with all different occupations. But everybody from those different generations and different occupations come here to this fraternity that's been over 300 plus years old. Eric, 35 years of experience. Tell me your story into Freemasonry.
Well, mine began in 1988 when I became a Mason. And I wasn't on a fast track or anything, but we want men that become Masons to get through their degrees, the 3 degrees that we take or observe in the blind within 3 months. So, but the steps leading up to it takes time, and it has to do with investigations and bringing information to the family, because it's a family thing, not only for the Mason himself, but his wife and needs to know what he's getting involved with. But one of my best friends and another one was a co-worker. They were the ones that signed my petition to become Masons in my lodge back in New Jersey, Laurel Lodge number 237. And it was quite interesting. It wasn't something I was searching for. It's just they thought that I would be a good person and fit for Masonry.
Now, why did you want to look into it, though?
Well, I really didn't, but the Masonic Lodge was like 100 yards from my house.
Okay.
Where I lived in Laurel Springs, New Jersey. My grandmother's brother was a Mason. Didn't talk about it. My 2 aunts, my grandmother's sisters, their husbands were Masons. And my grandfather, my mother's father, was a Mason who was in the military. It was in Pearl Harbor. And Masonry wasn't really discussed. You knew they were Masons, and they weren't standoffish. They were Masons, and there was no airs. They didn't walk around like proud peacocks and come out off on the people as somebody different and above one another. They were just down to earth guys.
Okay. So it's 1988. You're asking, or you asked for a petition, or somebody gave you a petition and thought that, hey, this is something you need to check out.
Yeah, they asked me, well, to be a Mason, you got to ask one to be a Mason, and public, the general people don't understand what that means to be one to ask one. But when somebody talks to you and they give you insight, they stimulate your mind to interest what it's about. And that's the inquisitive side of, okay, that's where that comes from, that you ask. And then you show that interest and you've asked somebody indirectly that, yes, I would consider this. And that's what happened. And I was 30 some years old at the time, had 3 kids, worked 14-hour days, 16-hour days for the railroad. I just retired 7 years ago or whatever.
Congratulations.
After 43 years, 9 months and 16 days, and like 9 different relocations in the industry, and here I am in Northwest Ohio.
So you go into this fraternity, you don't really know what's going on about. You get interviewed, you pass the ballot box. You're also going through these degrees that's been around forever. What is the experience like inside the lodge room? Is it a bunch of older guys in the lodge? Was it filled up? Was it a bunch of young men? Like, kind of tell us, like, what was the atmosphere like in New Jersey?
The atmosphere in New Jersey was quite exhilarating for me, because I wanted it probably more so than they wanted it for me. And the age groups, I mean, I've met people that were in their 90s, 50 years, 60-year Masons, that were, they talk to you, not at you. They didn't talk above you or put you down. They talk to you on the level, as what a Mason says. Hey, we walk on the level, and nobody's any better than one another. And I seen the officers, and when you become a Mason, you hear it and you feel it before you see it, and if that makes sense. And the degree itself is very impressive. That you got to hear it and feel it, and then you understand it.
Why do you think guys in society today, from pipe fitters, janitorial workers, politicians, businessmen, railroaders, why do you think people come to this fraternity? What do you think they're looking for?
I think they're looking for direction. They're looking for stability. They're looking for friendship. You know, we use the word brother not as a slang, but as a sincere, hey, I'll go that extra mile for anybody. It doesn't matter if it's you or for somebody on the street or on the highway broke down. You know, it's, hey, are you going to stop and help that person without any thoughts of yourself? You're giving. It's a part of giving of self without expecting anything in return.
Wow, I like truly an act of service.
Yeah.
In this fraternity. And do you think it's because of the mentorship of the men around you? Or do you think it's the teachings of this fraternity that make you think differently?
I think it gives me stronger direction and commitment and inspiration, that you want to be better personally, what externally, internally, spiritually. And, I'm not a spiritual person, but I know that when I'm around these men, or I think of them all the time.
Go on, express more about that, how you think about them all the time. You talk about people gone.
I think of people that are gone, that are here, that are coming through. The people that gave me insight, that gave me the answer questions of doubt about things.
Okay.
And masonry's not for everyone. It's like, okay, it's not a religion, as we all know, and the general public may think of it in a different sense, because we call it a Blue Lodge, we call it a temple. That's just a place where we meet, and it's not taking the place of God or your deity, but it helps you, it grounds you. It grounds you to the feelings that, hey, I might think that I'm getting somewheres, and I got to bring myself back, where I start getting outside the boundaries. It's
Sure.
like driving down the road. I mean, if you cross that center line, something's going to happen.
Right.
If it's not the right time to cross that center line, you better not do it.
Sure.
But Masonry has done a lot for me personally, spiritually, internally. My daughters were involved in the rainbow. I have a daughter who was a grand worthy advisor of the state.
Now, what is, for our non-Masons or even newer Masons to the show, what is the Rainbow Girls? We've spoken about it. Can you tell us a little bit more about what is the Rainbow Girl?
Rainbow Girls are it's a Masonic fraternity that's supported by Masons and for girls. And
So much like a Girl Scouts 4-H club?
on the same basis.
Okay.
And, it teaches them all the things that we learned, but, for a young lady and to become proper, knowing the right things to do and say and treat people. They hit a majority at like 17, 18, and then they become Eastern Stars if they prefer to pursue Eastern Stars, which is another body or part of Masonry on the
It's very co-ed, correct?
co-ed.
It's very co-ed.
Eastern Star is co-ed, which I'm an Eastern Star.
How long have you been an Eastern Star?
Since 2017.
Wow. So you did it here in Ohio.
Yeah, and I'm a past patron of a Triune chapter who's now associated with another chapter.
Now, was your wife involved in Eastern Stars?
No, but she became an Eastern Star back in New Jersey, and she belongs to Laurel chapter of Eastern Star because parents, if you want to see your daughter in the rainbow, you had to be a star.
Got it.
And so Janet's been an Eastern Star since 88, 89.
Wow. So you go through these degrees as a young man. How old were you?
1988, I was 34 and a half, 35.
34, 35.
Yeah.
You get your 3 degrees. You're working with your master's craftsman, your mentor, through those examinations to become a master mason. What did you do right afterwards? Right after you
That's an interesting thing because,
okay.
And I find that really exhilarating. When I went through my degrees, and I know you spoke about it on some of the other podcasts, you call it a catechism, and that really rings a bell with me. But you're responding back on learning by memory what you went through.
Mm-hmm.
And you're giving back an examination just to give your proficiency in what you learned.
Sure.
And I'm going to tell you, man, I had to study every night with my mentor. We sat at his dining or kitchen table, and we went through pots of coffee for me to memorize it. Now, like you, I seen you. It's like, how did this guy do this in like 20 days, 15? How did he memorize it? Because the examination back home in New Jersey was probably 2/3 of what you did in Ohio.
Yes, every state's a little different with the examination book, but it conveys pretty much the same meaning.
It's the same. There's only a few words, differences, and little innuendos that go into it. But when I listen to you do it, I mean, I did a pretty well word perfect examination, but when I was floored. I mean, I was like, oh my God, this guy has got it.
Well, I really appreciate
it. Was like I was impressed.
Well, I really appreciate that. I think it's a way that this examination kind of weeds out people who are truly going to be invested in this fraternity. If you're just going out thinking you're going to get some claim to fame, it's not there in Masonry.
And that's, it draws a bond between the mentor and the mentee. Did I say that right?
Yeah, mentor, mentee.
And then you see, well, this guy's got this direction. But on the other token, it isn't about having the ability to memorize something because we have Masons that can't really memorize everything.
Sure.
And we work with them and assure them in a brotherly fashion that, hey, don't worry about it. Is it important? Yes. Is it that important that you can't memorize it and give it word for word? No. It's the giving and the commitment that we as Masons, I believe, look for, because because somebody can't memorize something doesn't mean that they're not a good person.
Right, of course.
They're a perfect fit, but hey, don't expect me to memorize something. I mean, because I still have difficulties trying to remember stuff and doing the different parts of lectures and degree works, and we have it in the Scottish Rite. We have 29 more degrees in the Scottish Rite.
Yep. So talk about your journey into the Scottish Rite. Did you get involved in the Scottish Rite back in New Jersey? Because once you become a Master Mason, there's many masonry is like a tree. There's many other appendant bodies, and each body has its own style, theme. Some are more Christian based. We've talked about some of them go into more educational based. Some are more theatrical, while some are more research based. But there's many branches to masonry. So the Scottish Rite is another branch to continue that more light, that more education into the fraternity. So did you be a part of the Valley in New Jersey?
Yeah, I was in the Southern Valley in New Jersey, Scottish Rite, that met in Collingswood, New Jersey, which is, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes from our house. And I always think of that, where I lived in New Jersey, in Laurel Springs, straight up the road was Collingswood, New Jersey, where, we had little towns, just like here in Ohio, and a main artery, which is the White Horse Pike. And it was like looking from the White House to the Capitals to Lincoln Memorial,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just continue on that road, takes you right into Philadelphia to where number 1 North Broad is, where the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania, where Ben Franklin and all these men of 1800s met.
Wow.
So I've been there so many times. I actually got my Royal Arts degree in the number 1 North Broad in Philadelphia, which is a phenomenal place. I haven't been to the Detroit Temple, which is the largest in the country, but if you get to Philadelphia, you have to go to there and take a tour.
Royal Arch being a Christian branch in Masonry, it's a continuation of the degrees from your Blue Lodge. So if your
Right.
Blue Lodge is the base of your journey, it continues on that branch. It splits off.
I thought the Royal Arch was like the extension of the first 3 degrees.
It is, in a way.
Right. And it's like, and I became a Royal Arch Mason before a Scottish Rite Mason.
Got it.
And because I was so impressed by the Royal Arch degrees. But then when I was a Mason, when I was raised as a Master Mason in New Jersey, it was instilled in me that, hey, learn what you're doing here in Blue Lodge, and before you start stepping into the other appendant bodies. And I thought I got a great foundation. And then after that, I became an officer right away.
Officer in your Blue Lodge?
The next year.
At Laurel Lodge in New Jersey?
Correct.
Okay. So did you become master in New Jersey?
No, I was there, and I was appointed junior steward, then the following year was senior steward, and then junior deacon, and then I was a senior deacon in 93. And at that point, my mentor, Jackie Ray Longmire, who helped educate me in Masonry, he never told me he was ill, and I thought, wow, this is going to be great, because he was ahead of me in line, and I thought, oh, you're going to be in the East and I'll be in the West. And he made a comment to me that really, it comes to me just as if it was yesterday. He said, you'll get to the East long before I do. And I didn't know he was ill and didn't catch that. And he passed away.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
You know,
And I still talk to his wife, Barbara. And I'm actually Jackie's sons, Jackie Ray Jr. and uh, can't think of his other son's name. Chris are Masons.
okay.
So
Well, that's the one thing about this fraternity that, we sometimes never get the chance to say goodbye.
yeah,
And in those days
yeah.
when a man was,
It was gut wrenching. Let me tell you.
oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
We've experienced that in our lodge, Rubicon, with a lot of great members. But tell me about that brotherhood, about Jackie. He clearly had an impact on your journey.
Oh, definitely. Still today. There's times I don't think I think of him all the time, and every time I look at my Masonic ring, I think of Jack, because he meant that much to me, and he was I was as old as his kids.
Mm-hmm.
We were the same age as kids and all. I was like in their 30s and late 20s. Jackie was a man of 60. It's like how do you it's like having another father,
Sure.
not just a brother, but a father.
It's amazing how this fraternity, we don't see age in
No,
this fraternity.
it's not. We don't even see color.
Yeah, we definitely don't see color. We don't
No.
see age in this fraternity. And, you and I connect, and there's times when me and you are on the phone for 2 hours at a time.
No, yeah. What's our age difference?
Well, I'm 33. I joined when I was 22. About to hit my 11 years in Masonry right now. I mean, you pretty much have seen my journey.
I'm 39 years older. What is 39 years older? I'm 69.
See? So, but again, I think some people would look in and be like, oh, you're joining a fraternity with a bunch of older guys. They're going to talk down to you. They're not going to give you that proper respect. But that's not how it is in Masonry. And why is that?
We had those crucial conversations.
Mm-hmm.
When you were coming in the line in the lodge, and you were coming in the officers' line, and you had your education you were working on at the university, and
yep.
he said, "Well, you had mentioned to me, and it's crystal clear. Well, these old guys won't let us do anything." And my response to you was, "No, you misunderstand that. They'll let you do whatever you want, as long as you're going to come in and champion what you want to do."
And I always remembered what you said, and I always wanted to make sure I was doing that. It was like a light bulb went off.
And then you ask people, and then it's like, it's so much easier when you ask, and it's like knocking on a door. Okay, well, you knock on a door and the door opens.
Yep.
If you don't want to knock on that door, it's like leading a horse to water. I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was trying to do fellowship stuff in Rubicon and really get that camaraderie going in the fraternity, I wanted to show you, hey, we're not just talk. We're
walking the talk.
We're walking the talk. And I think we have something truly special that you've seen build in Rubicon with the fellowship, the ritual work, the charity, and the education.
Definitely, 110%.
Yeah. So
and it's great. I mean, it makes that energy that you brought and fellows before you and brothers before you, and that makes a difference. That gets that fire burning.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like we're talking about the town burning down. We're kindling the fire and building that steam up to get a head of steam to do things internally, externally.
Yep. I remember we were cooking fried bologna sandwiches at a festival. I remember we had a wine fundraiser at a wine house one time. You probably remember that. We've done for our scholarships.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, you talk about scholarships, people that aren't familiar with Masonry and another appended body is the Shriners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Masonry gives $1 million a day away. Yep. And each appendant body has its own what is that word I'm looking for? Philanthropy that they support. Shriners got Children's Hospital, Scottish Rite, and all the other bodies have got the grotto for dental for kids.
Yep.
All these different things, and
Have you ever experienced somebody who benefited from a Shriners Children's Hospital? A kid?
I, I'm a road runner. What's a road runner in the Shriners and take children to the hospitals, and it's a it's humbling. Let me tell you, it's humbling.
So what's that like?
It'll bring you to your knees.
What's that like? What do? You get a call? Hey, somebody.
Well, they're planned out that the shrine has the hospitals in Chicago and Lexington and Hawaii and Florida, Cincinnati, all over the country, Philadelphia, and in a different geographical area that has a specialty, and that family will need transportation. And it's not that they need transportation in a sense, but the shrine encourages the family to accept the transportation so that they can be with their child, family member, and they don't have to worry about getting in there and getting back.
Sure.
So it's for us here in Northwest Ohio, going to Chicago or going to Cincinnati or wherever we go, it could be a 12, 14-hour day.
Sure.
Yeah. And then they give them, not that it's this intrinsic side of it, but we stop and have a meal, and they're given enough funds to support the family. I mean, I don't know how many times I've been to Chicago.
Right.
I mean, just a couple of weeks ago, Keith Tuttle, illustrious brother Keith Tuttle from Rubicon Lodge 237, who was the potentate. I mean, he's a avid Shriner and donor to the Shrine hospitals, and drives all the time to Chicago and gives of oneself so much. It's amazing. Actually, I went to my first Shrine hospital with him.
Really?
Yeah, because they won't just let you go. They want you to learn what you got to do, but that's just another flip side of what we do as Masons. It's the giving of self and to make things better for somebody else.
That's very well said. Now, circling back to what you were talking about, you never became Worshipful Master at Laurel Lodge 237 in New Jersey because?
Well, I transferred with the railroad back in '93. I transferred so many times, but living in the house that we're in, I was offered a position, and I thought, gosh, I can't just do this. I have a daughter in high school. I got 2 kids in elementary school, one getting ready to go to high school. And it's like, I really wanted to go. I thought it was very important. It was a pay raise. And I told Janet, and I talked about it, and I said, well, I won't take it unless the kids agree that, okay, we should go. And they did. And then my daughter that same year was Grand Worthy Advisor Rainbow for the state of New Jersey.
Wow.
And then went to Ohio. She actually lived with our pastor from Presbyterian Church across the street from her house. His wife and husband, Pastor Dave Wanker. And she stayed there and finished her school.
Okay.
And then went to college at Ohio Wesleyan. My daughter came here and went to high school at Southview because we lived in Sylvania. Now that's crazy another thing. So when I come here, I end up moving next door to a guy and a woman. He was a past master, and his wife was a Eastern Star, and their daughters were Rainbow.
And you didn't know this guy, just your neighbor?
Just my neighbor.
Okay.
It's like, and I actually got New Jersey Masonic tags, and my Masonic tags came in, and it was 11/29, which was the date of my daughter's birth. 11/29. It was crazy. And I thought that was the most iconic thing, anomaly that would happen. So we lived there for like 3.5, 4 months, I guess. And then realized, it dawned on me, I know this lady. Then when I found out that she was a Eastern Star, they actually traveled from Ohio to New Jersey to my daughter's installation for Grand Worthy Advisor when the Grand Master of Masons in New Jersey was there. It was amazing.
So I want to make sure I understand this. You get a job opportunity from New Jersey. You're going through you took a break from Masonry at that point, right? Because you had to focus on family.
Yeah. I'm still a member of Lodge.
Sure.
I maintain my membership.
No, yeah. And then you take this job, you land in Sylvania, Ohio.
690 some miles away.
Exactly. You have a neighbor who's already a part of the fraternity here in Ohio. And out of all the houses you could have picked, out of everything that was going on, you actually knew those people all the way back in New Jersey because his wife was a part of Rainbow Girls.
Yeah, his wife was an Eastern Star, and their daughters were rainbows, and they made the trip to the Grand Lodge of Rainbow for New Jersey and attended my daughter's installation because it's a big affair. It's a big deal, and they do it all the time. And we end up buying a house next door to these people, and 3.5 months later, it dawned on us who they were.
But the chances of you finding not only a Masonic neighbor, but past master, who also is very active out of all the other 49 states.
Definitely.
They are making travels from Ohio to New Jersey. That's almost unbelievable.
It's like finding the needle.
Exactly. But that's how mystical this fraternity is. The synchronicities that happen.
My Masonic journey is it's different.
Sure.
Everybody's Masonic journey is different. It's what you make of it.
The break from when you were very active in New Jersey to when you got back active in Ohio, how long was the break?
93 to 14.
2014. Okay.
But I never took the break.
Sure. You probably met brothers all around.
Yeah. People that worked for me were Masons. They all knew I wanted to find a lodge. And one of the things I told them, I want to find a lodge that fits me, that can elevate me to become master. Not just tomorrow. I mean, I had to put my time in going through the chairs. But my goal was I wanted to be a master of the lodge. Or was I worthy of it? I don't know. It's just I was working my way to become master. I wanted to be a master.
So many times.
And it's not that it was. I wouldn't have died if I never became a master of a lodge. It wouldn't have killed me.
Right, I understand.
It was just something I wouldn't have achieved.
Sure. So you're being very particular of what lodge you may join in Ohio. You didn't just clearly this neighbor. You didn't jump to this neighbor's lodge as your first choice. Oh, I know a Mason. Boom! I can find a new lodge.
Brother Tim really never asked me to go to lodge with him.
Okay.
We went to Tiger games together. And I was happy to go to the Tigers game because I got to sit in the old Tiger Stadium and think of Al Kaline and all the famous Tigers,
Oh, yeah.
But
so you start looking for a lodge. How did you find Rubicon?
Well, in 93,
Sure.
I was working with guys that were Masons, and they were Shriners.
Is that in New Jersey or is that in?
That's here in Ohio.
In Ohio, 93. You come to Ohio,
right?
Okay.
And I think it was 94 because Bobby Williams, I think he's from Barton Smith, and a couple other guys. They were in the Shrine, and they were in the motorcycle escorts. And I knew there was motorcycle escorts, and the Shriners had escorts because we had the Shrine back home. But I wasn't a member at that time, and I wanted to join the Shrine. And I ordered a Shrine bike, and but to get a bike, you had to be a Shriner. So, and they're white, and I became a Mason. Excuse me, I became a Shriner at the Zenobia Shrine here in Toledo, which is now in Perrysburg, our new temple for the Shrine.
Sure.
And never looked back,
Yeah.
And then time went on. It's like man, I got to get back to Blue Lodge. Well, time happened. I didn't get my dues card from Shrine. So I went to the Shrine and said, hey, I didn't get my dues card. And I met a gentleman by the name of Dick Freese, who happens to be the recorder of the Shrine and who happens to be the past master of Rubicon Lodge, who happened to be his secretary now. He was secretary for 30 years. And it's like, oh my God, how could you do that for a lifetime?
Right. Well, he's a lifelong secretary.
Right.
And those are such rare breeds in Masonry. I think any Mason watching will agree with that. Secretary Masons are a rare breed because they got to be organized. They got to make sure they get the information out. You were secretary for a while at Rubicon. But I had a question and then I started talking about that.
That's when I met Worshipful Brother Dick. And he said, well, who are you? And I told him who I was. And he said, well, what lodge do you belong to? And I said, well, I belong to Laurel Lodge 237 in New Jersey. And you could just see the look on his face. It was like, what? Because he's secretary of Rubicon Lodge 237.
Another synchronicity.
Right. And it's like, and it doesn't even click to me. I don't even know I see the look on his face of astonishment. And he says, well, where do you live? I said, Waterville. He says, we got a lodge in Waterville. I said, yeah, right. Sarcastically, I said, yeah, it's a historical society. Well, I didn't know. I'm oblivious to it that Wakeman Lodge was on 64 right there in Waterville. It was now a historical society.
Yeah, they weren't meeting there.
And they were in the Browning Masonic community, which I lived in Waterville, didn't even know the Browning Masonic community existed.
Which is a 500-acre campus.
You can't miss it. Just right down the road. And he says, well, you ought to come to our lodge. He invited me out. And I just took to the guy. I just took to Dick as pointing his bony finger at you, that type of thing. But he was just such a great guy. You just love the guy to death. And I went to Rubicon, and then I found out it was Rubicon 237, and I thought, oh my God.
Again, the chances are.
It's like, this is an anomaly. And then I looked up to the sky, I thought, there is a God.
Yes, there
Somebody's looking down that's telling me, hey, there's a course. And how am I following this course? I'm doing it blindfolded.
So you joined Rubicon.
I joined Rubicon.
And the experience from an Ohio lodge, Rubicon Lodge number 237, to New Jersey, Laurel Lodge 237, are they the same? Are they different? Is it one better than the other? Like, what was your experience? Because now you're seeing two lodges in two different states with the same number.
Yeah, I felt really proud to become a member of Rubicon Lodge. That this doesn't just happen. It happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And I have the best of both worlds.
Right.
They do the same things. The brothers are treating and acceptance is the same, with their own caveat of differences of being like going from Rubicon Lodge to Genoa Lodge or Northern Light Lodge or Damascus, whatever. You go to a different lodge. They all have their differences, but it's the same. It really is. They have different ideas, and you just work off of their ideas and fit them into you. I used to tell people, hey, you might not like what I'm saying, but take what I say, what you like, and get rid of what you don't like, and then use it.
No, absolutely. You are always one to give advice to men, and sometimes people take things one way or the other. But
that's how come I went from the east to the had to go to the west to get to the east.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
And that's when I joined Rubicon Lodge. I actually sat on the north side of the lodge and just watched everybody how they acted.
Mm-hmm.
And nothing told me to do that. It just did it out of habit.
Mm-hmm.
And just want to see how people reacted. And
sure.
It's like people bent over backwards for me. And after about a month or half a dozen visits or whatever, they said, well, are you going to join the lodge or what are you going to do? I said, yeah, I think I'm going to have to.
Yeah.
It became a have to.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely. Now, we talked about generational Masons, and each generation brings something to the table. Now, talk about the statesmen of Rubicon and what did you experience from them to now you're seeing a crop of new Masons
oh, yeah.
arise, and talk about, just a bystander watching on the sidelines these different dynamics, trying to communicate to not only better the community, but better their own lodge, better themselves.
I thought that everybody um, was was doing the right things, and they were bringing in good people, and we're still doing it, even to this day. But I met some young guys, and I met older folks, and one that really stands out to me is Worship Brother Jim Brown,
Oh my
who
goodness,
passed
legend,
away,
legend.
and I don't know.
8-time past master of Wakeman and Waterville before Wakeman Lodge merged into Rubicon, and was always there to help, always there to just give you that education of this is why we do this. He took your time with you. I only got to know him for a very short amount of time, but yeah,
Oh
totally a
yeah,
legend.
yeah, definitely. He I don't know. He just came to me, or not. It didn't come to me, but he approached me in all ways of wanting to be outright, forthright, giving, and help me, make me welcome.
Hmm.
He just we just hit it off. I mean, he's just a great person,
Yeah.
just
Oh,
a great person, and I
it,
miss him so.
oh, me too.
Even when I went to dinners, I would end up probably sitting next to Worship Brother Jim, and we're just brothers. It didn't matter that he was a Wakeman, raised and brought up in Wakeman Lodge, and hey, we got Worship Brother Gerald Fish, we got Worship Brother Paul Fish. We just lost a couple months ago, Brother Carl Turner, who, when I was master, I asked Carl if he'd be my lodge educational officer, and I just wanted people to feel welcome, and that I was depending on them.
Sure.
Not that I needed to depend on them or they needed to depend on me. I needed them more than they needed me.
And
And he graciously said, Eric, I can't do it. And I understood.
but he
But
always was
I
there to
felt so
support.
much better, and I think he felt better that I had the audacity or encourage to ask him for somebody I didn't even know.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't, he was always at meetings.
Yep.
It's like, just to get him involved, make him feel welcome, even that I welcome him as much as the lodge welcomes anybody.
And when I came in, there's so much leadership on a district level. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
4 counties that make up a district level, 21. Well, now it's 20 lodges over the past 11 years. And at that time, so many of our guys was in those leaderships, bettering masonry in all those different branches.
that's interesting you say that, because the district, Dick Freese and Right Worship Brother Mark Bullock, who's now gone. I'm sorry to see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were always going to these meetings, and I said, "Well, what's this meeting?" I didn't know anything about a district meeting.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, well, come on with me, and they just drug me along.
Yep.
And next thing you know, I'm in the district line. I'm out. I don't know how many meetings for years I was going, and then I was asked to get in the district line.
Yep. Yep. You were a district officer. You're a past district president.
Right Worship Brother Mark Allred talked and supported me with Most Worship Brother Charlie um, Charlie and Most Worship Brother Rob Brill.
Rob Brill. Yeah.
They all say, hey, here's a man that comes to the meeting and says, we need to utilize him. And then That's what happened.
Yeah, and we can go on and on about some of the other
Oh yeah.
other key figures in Masonry in Northwest Ohio, but one
But
thing,
I,
yeah,
but I, and then the lodge had some officer situations, and I was elected officer. Not that wasn't my goal to be elected officer in Rubicon Lodge. I I had no these I I had more work involvement because I was working 14-hour days and being a manager and one of the biggest terminals on the railroad of our system and uh, territorial wise. But then I started back in line as senior deacon where I left off in New Jersey, which was with the help of all the officers and members of the lodge. They voted me. And it's like that was like a year and a half later or something. It's
sure.
like, wow, that was an honor.
Absolutely. Now we're coming up to our time here. I always get a smile every time you see these young Masons getting active, and you're like, Brother Lou is the smartest guy I know, or this brother is the smartest guy I know, and I don't know how he does it. What do you say to people who talk about, I just don't have time to be active. I don't have time to dedicate to this fraternity, or I don't have time to join Freemasonry. What do you say to that? Because you wanted to speak on that about time.
Well, when people say I ain't got time, it's like, well, what's important to you? So because you're talking to the pig, because I'm committed. It's like the pig's committed. So you want to roll around the mud, the pig loves it.
Mm-hmm.
But I work 14 hours a day. I officiate high school and collegiate sports. I involved with Masonry. I'm an officer in the lodge. All these different things. It's like, and I still make time. How are you spending your time?
Sometimes people are a little bit more distracted than
Mm-hmm.
anything else, than truly laying out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put so much hours here. I'm gonna put so much hour into my vocation, and of course you have to put family in there, and
Sure.
you really got to work on yourself from becoming that from that rough stone to becoming
Yeah, rough
not a
ashler to
perfect.
a perfect ashler.
Exactly.
And we're not perfect. I'm still a rough ashler.
Mm-hmm.
I probably won't even be perfect when I die.
Well, Eric, I truly appreciate your dedication to the fraternity from a young guy who's, you and I have walked in this journey together. 2012 is when I joined, 2014 is when you really got active in Rubicon. I can't thank you enough for all the times you call and reach out, and you and I are just discussing, the great institution known as Freemasonry. Before we go, I always like to give this at the end. What would you say to somebody looking for this fraternity?
You have to take it with your eyes peeled wide open and not be afraid of what the unexpected or unknown might be, because that unknown will take you to places you'll cherish for the rest of your life.
That is the story of Worshipful Brother Eric Erickson. I'm R.L. Franks, and you are all square. Hey, R.L. Franks here. Thanks again for watching today's episode. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, if you believe someone can benefit from the message that we provided on today's podcast, send it over to them. You may inspire them.